Okay.
All right.
I think we're running.
All right. Welcome if you're on YouTube. Sure, nobody is yet, but they're getting there.
Oh, yep. Somebody was waiting. It's already
All
there.
right. Sweet. All right. Well, welcome everybody to the 034 Motorsports live chat, live feed 2020
Q&A.
hashtag. This is a Q&A session, so please ask us all your burning questions about anything automotive. Certainly feel free to ask us about anything. We've given relationship advice, cooking tips, all kinds of stuff. Nate's a pretty interesting guy, so feel free to ask about anything you guys would like. We're here to answer, and we're here to answer honestly and directly with kind of a no BS policy. So that's what we've been doing this year, and only had to apologize once, so that's pretty good.
You've only chosen to apologize once.
Well, sure. I only needed to.
Right.
No, even the time I apologized, I didn't really need to. But,
Fair.
Yeah. I think that's a hallmark of a good apology.
Yes.
So let's see. Someone is asking, first question, and again, if we say anything that you don't agree with or you don't understand, or
Yeah, if you want some more clarification on anything, fire off a follow-up question. We'll dig deeper and flush it out
ask
for you.
in the feed, and we will be
trained lackeys.
happy to respond. And we do have a off-camera staff of fact checkers and typers. So anyways, someone's asking, good morning, how much of a difference do the Dynamic Plus sway bars front and rear make on ride quality in a B9 RS5? So this answer will relate to pretty much any sway bar on any car. So what happens when you increase the stiffness of a sway bar is you essentially connect the left and right suspension together. The only way that those two suspensions can move once a sway bar is installed is the sway bar has to twist. So what the sway bar does is it resists one suspension from moving differently from the other. So if you're going down the road and you're hitting, let's say, speed bumps, the sway bar is going to have no effect. But if you're going down the road and there's just bumps on one side or the other, then the stiffer the sway bar is, the more the sway bar will resist. So essentially, there will be increased stiffness given to the side that's hitting the bump, and that could potentially be felt. I would say, from my extensive experience, and I think Nate will agree, that the type of sway bar stiffness increases that we do, especially on the front of the cars, has very little effect on ride quality. Certainly, it pales in comparison to the increase in performance, the reduction in body roll. Those are substantial and really good things. But nothing like the stiffness you get from just putting stiffer springs or stiffer suspension or stiffer dampers on a car.
Yeah, and it's going to be very dependent on what kind of roads you're driving on. But I mean, 99% of anything out there, your left and right wheels are doing pretty much the same thing.
Yeah,
the majority of the time. So you're going to have very little impact on drivability.
Right.
Just driving normally. It's when you really load up and get into the corners, you're going to feel the difference, which is the idea.
But I have tens of thousands of miles in our B9 S4, which is a very similar platform to the RS5, and that has all our Dynamic Plus suspension products on it. I would not say that car has a stiff or bad ride in any way. It has. I truly believe that it rides better than stock. The ride is more controlled. It's smoother. There's less wallowing. The car is responsive to variations in the road, but never do I feel like the tires or suspension are crashing over bumps. Never do I feel jerked around by how the car responds to a road irregularity. So if you're looking to just simply improve the handling of your RS5 without changing the ride quality in a negative way, then I strongly recommend our sway bars. I also recommend springs and some of the other things too. They're going to make the car handle better and ride better. these B9 chassis cars, none of our products make them feel stiff in any way. So yeah, and and then I get in and out of a lot of different cars. So I'll get out of the B9 S4 into an R8 or GTI with all of our stuff, or our TTS or an RS3. And I would say that the B9 in general is I mean, when I go from the R8 back to the B9, even with our stuff on it, it feels like an SUV to me, because
there's a very different
it's just
platform,
higher and so cushy compared to the R8. So, and the R8 is not a stiff riding car by any means. It's also a very nice car to drive. So, what's the difference between H&R springs and Dynamic Plus springs? Well, maybe we can refer them back to some past comments on this.
We've talked quite a bit.
We've talked about this a lot.
How we develop our spring sets.
I think I even have a vlog on this from a few years ago.
We'll pop that link up later.
Yeah. Generally, I would say, you could put like H&R and Eibach and a lot of these mass-produced springs on the market. They're good products. There's no question about it. I believe both Eibach and H&R have German roots, even though I don't know if they're all made in Germany anymore. I don't think they are. Eibach has a factory in the U.S. I know they have a factory in China. But generally, the springs that we do, all of our springs are made in the U.S. By a Tier 1 OEM spring manufacturing company. I've visited their facility, and it's world-class. It's a really nice facility. We're really honored to have a company here in the U.S. that can build products of this level of quality for us. The difference between what you'll see in the H&R product line and what you'll see in ours is that we will do springs for each model. So for the S3, we have different springs than the Golf R and the GTI. We have different springs for the B9A4 than we do for the S4. We have different springs for the RS3 and the TTRS, and so I think some of the bigger companies, they kind of come out with one spring that lowers 1.1 inches or whatever, and they change the stiffness however much. And if it fits on MQB, they list it for all the MQB applications, regardless of whether that car has different shocks or not, different front and rear weights, whether it's Quattro or not, whether it has a sport package already or not. They just have a generic one size fits all approach. So what we always like to say is that at 034 Motorsport, our products are curated. We tailor a different spring for the S3 owner than the RS3. Why? Well, RS3 has a different engine. It has different weights, front and rear. The factory dampers that we embrace and use are different. So it would make no sense to put the springs from one on the other. And actually, when we first got our RS3, we put our RS3 springs on it just to confirm.
Yep.
And it was actually a downgrade.
Yep.
So this is the issue you have with a lot of these mass market springs is that spring isn't necessarily tailored for your car. Will it lower it? Sure. Will you have a reverse rake? Many times you will. And when we first really started doing these springs, I had a 996 turbo, and I think I got some Eibach springs. And the car was like dangerous to drive. I just put the Eibach springs on it, which they had advertised, and it was such a bad experience. I thought, we could do better than this. And so that's when we came out with our S3, MQB S3 springs was the first spring we did. And we went on to win the European Car Tuner Grand Prix with all factory stock springs. I don't think you could do that on H or Fox. So anyways, they obviously make a good product. They've been around forever, but we've seen an opportunity to do something in a more curated, targeted way than they have in the past.
Yeah, definitely more bespoke per application for sure.
Yeah, if I as a 996 turbo owner, I was looking for this product. It didn't exist in the market, and it still doesn't to my knowledge. You really need to go buy a complete coilover kit with a spring and shock that's adjustable, and then you can kind of adjust it to where you want it to be. But our goal is you install the springs in your car. They're $300 and some bucks, and everything's optimized to work with your factory dampers, and you don't need to mess with it. You don't need to change the ride height. You don't need to mess with shock settings. You put it in, you already have the most optimized performance for a very low price, and you get the biggest bang for the buck. And that's kind of our goal with all of our products. It's a real win-win in situations like that. All right, someone is asking, any news on the 19-inch wheels? Yes, we have good news. They are on their way to us from the Anaheim distribution center.
Yep.
So we are part of the EMP group, which includes MP Racing Line and us. And we have our shipments of big things like wheels go there first. And so the wheels are on their way up. We should be having some here this week. When are we planning on releasing those, Nick? Yeah, so I think my hope would be that we can get them up on the website by next week. But we'll have a good stock and plenty of stock. And we'll have a 19-inch for the B8, B9 chassis, as well as the RS3 TTRS. And again, we're taking the same approach as our Dynamic Plus springs. These wheels are engineered and tailored to fit these cars. They don't come from a catalog of, choose your width, choose your offset, choose your size. So, we are making wheels for the B8 and B9 S4. They happen to have the same fitment. We're making a wheel specifically for the RS3 that fits the TTRS. That doesn't exist on the market currently because we've been able to create the most optimal fitting wheel. And frankly, if we want to get into the wheel business, we have to do something different and better. And so that's what we're doing here. Any plans on C7 S6 tunes? I'm assuming 4.0T.
Yep.
Absolutely. Definitely look for something from us. In 2021, we will be releasing tunes for those. Absolutely. Send the recipe for rooster stew. Well, it's I actually do think I have the.
I think you posted up what you used, but
I have a neighbor. My neighbor may be asking this, and they had 2 roosters. And in our city, you're not allowed to have roosters within city limits, and nobody wants to wake up at 5 in the morning to cockle-doodle doos. So I enthusiastically proposed slaughtering them and eating them, which is not something I've ever done. And so we did, and I made a delicious rooster. It's like a chicken soup, but with rooster. It was very good. So I think I've posted my chicken soup recipe on Facebook before. So shoot me a message if you want the recipe. But
That's
very
awesome.
good. Oh, okay. Well, hopefully I can make you guys a chicken soup of some kind soon. So, how do I explain to the women I'm dating that the car and car parts come first? Safely. How do I safely explain?
I added the safety.
Oh, okay.
It's all safety features. Yes.
I mean, that's a tough one, right? Because I don't know if any woman's looking to be second to a car. So.
Well, you got to put her first by making it the safest vehicle
possible.
Yes, you need power.
That's always been my.
The highway safely.
That's always been my advice. Is for years I've been telling our customers to let their wives know that girlfriends know that it's all about safety. You want to accelerate away from the danger and brake before you get to it. So, but yeah, no, I think when it comes to women or anyone, I recommend being honest up front, and maybe you should download Tinder if you haven't already, because that's probably going to be a better app for dating women who are going to want to be second to a car. But I respect your zeal. And those are the kind of customers we like here. Discuss stiffness of B8.5 S4 034 motor mounts compared to factory and recommended replacement mileage. So our density line motor mounts for the B8 and B8.5, we offer a broader range of different densities for those than any other mount we sell. And the reason is because that range covers the A4 and the S4. So if you're looking for the absolute softest mount that we sell, even if you want to put it in a 3.0T, you could. You're going to want to buy our A4 street density mount. And the reason for that is the V6 is much smoother than the four-cylinder. The four-cylinder, even though it has a balance shaft, still struggles with various harmonics in the crankshaft. So that's our softest. Now, the street density mount that we offer for the S4 is a mount that we believe has minimal NVH and is a good overall compromise between performance and comfort. We've been kind of tweaking these stiffness, the mount designs and the stiffness of the rubber for years, and if you want to go up to the track density, that's the stiffest, and then we even offer motorsport mounts above that, which actually Nate has in
I've had them
his
in my car
daily
for
driver,
years. Yeah.
and it's you notice them, but they're not bad. I mean, they're not.
The only time I
not
really remember
terrible.
they're there is like at idle and
Right.
super.
That's
cold
typically when
mornings.
NVH is the worst, is at idle and maybe at a certain RPM. When you're freeway, you hit that 3,200 RPM, resonance, and then you get, as long as you're above it or below it, you're fine.
Yeah, really not bad in that.
As far as replacements, I'm not aware of many customers who've had to replace them. I think we've been selling those for 5 years.
In a while now, yeah.
It's a very durable product, much better than the factory mounts, which is very prone to failure. So I mean, at this point, we can say from what we know, it's a long-term, possibly a lifetime product in the car. You really don't need to replace it ever.
The only situation using a street density not a race
In a race car type application or something.
For drag use.
That's when I'd recommend the
You're doing motorsport.
the motorsport mount.
The
But
heavy
I
tasks.
think our density mounts have been holding up well.
Yeah,
for
we
drag
haven't had a
racing,
lot of
too.
problems with
Unlike the
them.
MQB stuff and the VW stuff, which that design is wrong. So, but yeah, if you really want to do hard launches and really use the car hard with a lot of power, the motorsport mounts are the way to go. Those have a lifetime warranty, which means if you ever wear out the bushings, we'll send you new ones for free. You just have to press them out and press in the new ones.
Yep.
I recently installed spherical trailing arms in a Mark 7 GTI. Do I need to realign my car?
Maybe.
I would say yes. I mean, you need to go check it. Anytime you take a suspension apart and put it back together, typically the alignment changes.
Yeah, and those stock bushings have a huge amount of play and movement in them that they can kind of take a set and you know, the geometry may not be dead center like it's supposed to be from the factory, and it may have been realigned to that. So it's a impossible one to answer. We always recommend checking your alignment.
Yeah, Nate makes a good point. If you had your car, we can assume that you had your car aligned with the stock trailing arms previously, and those bushings do sag and move around. So now your control arm with our spherical is exactly where it's supposed to be from the factory. Excuse me. So your alignment's going to probably change just from the control arm being back to where it's supposed to be. So, but whenever you take a car apart, you want to check the alignment. The consequence is you'll look at your rear tires one day and the treads will be gone and you'll be seeing belts showing. And it happens real quick. If, for example, your toe changes and you're dragging one of those tires along, it wears very quickly. So a $80 alignment checkup is probably cheaper than replacing new tires. So plus, the car will track and perform better and everything. MQB E8 888.3 MPI in the works.
It's something we are talking about, yes. I don't have any definitive timelines for that. We're going to be offering more ethanol and ethanol blend tunes for those coming up. So that'll be happening at the same time.
Yeah. Does the Stage 1 tune offer features like valet mode, throttle neutering? I want to keep my teenagers from killing themselves in the RS3.
The Stage 1 tune is a performance tune, so it's going to make it quite the opposite of a throttle neutered valet mode. I have, from time to time, put up valet maps, but you would have to reflash the controller for that function.
Yeah, so you just, if you have our tune and our cable, you just flash the car
Yeah, you can always go back to stock easily.
I would generally keep a teenager out of an RS3 as much as possible, but yeah. Yeah. So, but we can provide valet tunes that you can flash. So, I'd suggest emailing tuning at 034motorsport.com, and the team there will be happy to help you with that request. DQ381 tuning, why are DSG farts no longer possible on the new 7-speed DSG?
It's not that they're no longer possible. It's some of the OEM mapping has changed in the way that the shifts are done. And I mean, generally the faster the shift, and then this becomes a trick too on the tune files, the faster the shift, the less time there is for a DSG fart. So you're getting that shift done, faster than what the audible fart would be there for, because that is basically a sound tuning thing, not a performance tuning thing.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. As much fun as farts are, I mean, let's face it, they're hilarious. They take time, and so if you're hearing farting, that's not acceleration. So the faster the shift, the less of that ignition timing retard you'll hear. The faster you're back in the power and accelerating forward. So I think our goal would be to eliminate them completely with the fastest shift possible.
Yeah. And you'll generally get one little crack, if anything, out of it.
Yeah. Are DSG fart files the new crackle and pop?
I hope not.
Parts for 2 seconds.
Yeah, it's all very, very relieving.
EPA probably would.
Yeah, no. What other planned finishes are there for ZTF wheels? We do not currently have anything planned. We're certainly discussing other option choices in the future.
We've talked about doing raw and then letting them get finished at the end. There's so many options out there to obviously finish these.
I think eventually we will do that. We will bring in unpainted wheels, and then we will paint them locally through a paint refinishing company. There's several here in the Bay Area, and so there would be like a 3-week lead time for anyone who's buying.
And I think that that's kind of industry standard. I think for a lot of wheels, you kind of you wait, you pick your color you want, and then you're gonna have to wait for it.
We're by the end of next year we'll have 10 or 15 wheel models, and then if we're gonna have 10 colors of all those, I mean, we don't have warehouses big enough to inventory. So for the time being, we're selling our anthracite color exclusively. Our goal is really to offer a wheel with a level of performance and fitments that's not currently on the market. We're not really color innovators at 034 Motorsport, though I understand a lot of people do buy wheels for their cars based on purely the aesthetic or that look. But that said, any of our current wheels can be repainted any color of your choice. Especially if you live in a bigger city, there's chances are, any auto body shop can paint a wheel.
Yeah.
There are shops that specialize in wheel painting as well, and you could paint over the currents. Then you wouldn't have to media blast our current wheels or anything like that either. If you really want our wheel, I think it's usually about $100 a wheel to have a wheel painted. Something to consider. I think we need to get the wheel program off the ground. We need to get all the fitments out there, and I think maybe in a year or so we could start thinking about colors. So that just being honest, that's where we're at.
Yep.
But we're always open to feedback. 90% of the market wants wheel options. Then that's something we should do sooner than later. Will you develop coilovers for MQB chassis or B8, B9 chassis cars? We don't currently have plans to. We really like our current Dynamic Plus spring offerings. We feel like they offer a superior mix of ease, convenience, performance for an incredible value. I think a lot of we have a clip about this, but I think a lot of the market, they underestimate the complexity of installing and getting a coilover right. yes, you can adjust the height of a coilover, but adjusting the dampening is a whole other factor. In order to do that well, typically takes testing at a track, and that's not something the average person is going to have access to or going to want to pay for.
We've got a pretty long rundown of the pros and cons to this on another video up on YouTube.
Sharing that with them. But when you buy our Dynamic Plus springs, you're committing to whatever height that we finalized on. Our criteria for the height is something that still rides well, still gives the suspension proper travel, and something that looks good. So those are what we base it on. I think there's some spring companies out there that just go as low as they can, just regardless of where the shock travel ends up. And then we have to balance all that with the stiffness and spring rate of the coil as well. So I think you're gonna have a really hard time exceeding the performance of one of our Dynamic Plus springs. Beyond that, the only benefit of a coilover would be to just be able to dump it or raise it some amounts. And what I've seen, I've been doing this for 25 years, is people buy coilovers and install them on their car, and then they almost never touch them.
Almost never. Yeah. They set the height they want, and they send it.
And then you're stuck with whatever the factory shock settings were, and then to adjust those, you end up just making it worse. And then people can end up disappointed with the performance overall.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you don't corner balance it correctly when you get those initially set up, you can get a ride height that looks right in a car that handles pretty weird, because you can really overload different corners if they're not set properly.
So this, let's take a little new product break. This is our new upcoming C7 4.0T S6 ResX. So if you're not familiar with our ResX products, this is a line of products that removes the factory resonator from the factory exhaust system. So typically with our ResX products, you get the sound and typically the performance of a much more expensive full exhaust system by simply removing augmenting the factory resonators. I think a full exhaust for this application could run $1,500 at the cheapest to get $2-3 easily. I don't know what retail ends up at this. It'll be under $500. We've tested this on one of our employees has an S6 here, and I believe he had a MagnaFlow exhaust on his car.
He did
prior, and so we swapped back and forth. And when I drove it, I felt like, well, one, the factory exhausts flow really good these days. There's typically very little benefit to upgrading a factory exhaust on an Audi until you get well past stage 2 power levels. But I felt like this sounded as good as what he had on there. It wasn't actually a lot quieter or anything. And the performance was great in both applications. I don't think we dynoed it, but we don't do this for performance necessarily. Although it does remove one potential restriction from the exhaust. This is simply a product that allows you to get the sound that you want without replacing the whole exhaust. The factory exhaust, they're mandrel bent, they're stainless steel. I mean, they're really good quality. They're as good as you could want from
multiple flow paths these days.
They fit perfectly, obviously.
They obviously fit great.
They have valves now, most of them. So this is a really great product. We started doing this on the S3. That was our first ResX product.
Yep.
We ended up pushing our S3 to well over 450 horsepower with the stock exhaust and the ResX installed, and our cast downpipe. So anyways, we will be releasing this soon, and keep an eye out for this. This is a beautiful exhaust, all TIG welded. It has our titanium look finish on it.
Surface finish.
It's a surface treatment. It's not actually a finish, so it can't come off. But it's a special type of media blasting of the stainless steel tubing. So yeah, it gives a real unique, refined look. Again, Fitment's OEM. So look for this soon if you have an S6 4.0T. All right. Next question. Mods to help get better times at the track in a B8 S4?
Depends on the track, if it's straight or has corners.
Let's assume they're talking about
if it's a drag strip, yeah, I mean it's
no
road course.
Road course.
All right, we can go to the road course side of things. A lot of that is going to be. I'm going to go just driver mods.
Driver mods.
So much of that is dependent on just seat time behind the wheel, good instruction, good experiences out there, and then you'll start to kind of feel out where the weak points are. The biggest one on the V8 S4 is going to be brakes.
Yeah, that's the number one thing.
The massive,
but probably not
Achilles heel on track. First time out, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Just if you're fresh on the track, just drive within the car's limits. You're going to get a lot from it, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah, just take the car bone stock if you can.
Yep, and then just so you know where you're starting from and what it feels like per change, ideally. Yeah, it's going to be very driver dependent on what you want and how the car feels and responds to your driving style. But I mean, my car, I like a very sharp, very responsive, very tactile feel. So I've got spherical control arms everywhere, which we're releasing soon. Sway bars, our springs, motorsport mounts. So it's a very connected feel in the car. And obviously upgraded brakes and whatnot on it in our tuning. So I mean, you can start stock, do some basic stuff. But time and experience is going to get you a long way.
Yeah, I mean, I without sounding, like a shill or overly biased, just put our catalog on your car. That's literally why we design these products for high performance street driving as well as on track. I would say that get a set of our upcoming wheels.
Yep.
Get some arc. I mean, if the driver mod is the first thing. So if you've never been on track, take your car as it is and go do some track days. Go get 5-10 days under your belt. So that's really important.
Yep.
The cars are much more capable than the people, and so there's a lot of guys, men specifically, who think they're real badass drivers because they've been blasting around in one lane, on the local roads. The typical road, the lane of a road is slightly wider than a car. Even if you take the liberty of using both lanes, you're in a 2-lane width situation. Typical road course, you're dealing with like the width of the track is possibly 8 to 10 lanes of a road. So you're now driving through a sea of pavement that there's very little indication of where you're supposed to be. If you just go out on the track and you hug the inside of the corners like you do on the street, you're gonna be the slowest person out there, and you'll be by no means going fast. So you need to learn how to drive the line. You need to learn about vehicle dynamics. You need to be able to get your car to the limit and drive it there for long periods of time. That's not something anyone knows how to do until they go to a track and get the right kind of training. I think the first time I went on track, I was in college. I thought I was, Schumacher, and I was going to go out there and show everyone. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was so lost. Again, it just felt like a sea of pavement, and I had no idea where to put the car. So, after 20 plus years of track driving, I'm still learning every time I go to the track. I try to go 3 to 5 times a year. I'm learning every time I go. So, but once you feel like you're reaching the limit of the car, which means the brakes are overheating, that your tires are squealing, you can carry more speed, but the car is just holding you back.
Right. You can't get the orientation of the car where you want, where it's either pushing too much or it's tires are overheating.
You want to be over there, the steering wheel's like this, and the car is going that way. Those are the indications that you've maxed out your car, and that could very well happen 5 to 10 track days in. I think some people have a better natural ability than others. And then at that point, our springs, our sway bars, good wheels, sticky tires, any kind of R compound tire. You definitely are going to need brakes in the B8. Any of the big chassis Audi cars need big brakes. recommend a kit from like a Brembo or an AP Racing or an Alcon or something like that. And then there's, power isn't necessarily something you need to go fast on track.
You'll be amazed the Miata, like fairly stock power Miatas that are just going to be
there's
flying by you for a while.
130 horsepower Miatas passing 600 horsepower, everything's on track. So, but with our tuning setup, you can buy our cable, you can flash your car to stage 1, you can even go to full stage 2. There is a point where when you get enough brakes and tires into the car that you're going to be able to use that kind of power. But I mean, I think the overall message is, don't overestimate your abilities, don't underestimate the abilities of the car, and get out there and learn.
Yep. Show up with a huge dose of humility.
Yeah.
Absorb everything you can.
Be willing to learn. Ask anyone and everyone to go ride with you, anyone that you respect. And I think the biggest way I learned is by riding with other people.
Yeah.
And just seeing what's possible.
Get in the seat with someone who can really wheel a car around, and you're gonna have a new envelope for what you think cars can do. Yeah.
Even when I go to a new track, I want to ride with someone who I know is faster than me, and I'm like, oh wow, I didn't know you could go. You could carry that much speed through this corner. And, oh, okay, you let the car kind of step out a little bit, and then you can kind of get back on the throttle, and you can carry that speed right through this corner instead of braking so much. And I know I've been instructing for years too, and that's always, I could sit in the passenger seat telling people what to do, or I can just go show them, and I always try to give my students a ride early on, and I see them the following session doing, growing and improving so much. So you'll learn a lot just from watching and being in the passenger seat, and seeing how it's done. That's the key.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
About it,
that's right.
Instructors.
Yeah, so we go to all NorCal Audi Club track days. That's our local club. There's about 4 or so a year. We go to other track days too occasionally. For us, we go out and we take the opportunity to test our products. It's also a great way to meet our customers and hang out and have fun and advertise and all that stuff. Check out if you're in Northern California or Southern California, check out the Golden Gate Audi Club. Become a member if you're not. It's an incredible community. The track days are really well run. They're really fun. I've been participating in that club since 1997, something like before Nick was born.
Basically, yeah.
It's a great club, but there are clubs like this all over the country. If you really enjoy cars and coffee is kind of cool, but it's like a bunch of tire kicking or whatever. If you want to enjoy cars and enjoy people and have fun, go to the track and truly learn how to drive your car. Because I guarantee if you've never been on track, you have no idea what you're doing. It's just, you just don't have the opportunity to learn that. So, all right. I went on a little too long about that, but that'll be a good one to clip out. Any new TTRS 8S products coming? Funny you ask. We are releasing our full 4-inch intakes this week. We have a whole slew of options, including closed top, open top. We have one configuration that reuses the stock airbox bottom. And then we have a full version that replaces the bottom and the whole front support, air shroud inlet duct. And then we also have some retrofit kits. So if you already have our previous generation intake and you want to upgrade to the 4-inch, we have just the tube and some hardware to upgrade that for a reduced price.
Yep. And then we also have adapters to stock turbo inlets,
right?
And then up to the
those are included with every intake.
Up to the full 4-inch turbo inlet.
So you can run stock inlet or a 4-inch inlet. We will be releasing our 4-inch inlet next year. We're working on that right now.
I think Mark's actually testing the final prototype today for fitment checks.
Yeah, and there's actually a substantial power gain for all of it.
Yep.
So we did some testing last week for our advertised numbers. We really strive to release good data, what we often consider industry-leading data, more data than what other companies on the market offer, so that when you guys make your choice, you can base it on real information and data. And so we spent, Nate and Nick spent
three full days
last week on the dyno, doing dyno runs, crunching data,
redoing runs, depending on stuff
and following a very rigid scientific process to gathering this data to really isolate different variables.
Because we're just trying to show what this intake, how this intake changes airflow and when and where and what it's doing for the motor. So you've really got to lock down some variables around it in the tune and whatnot to really just show the intake and highlight what it's capable of.
Yeah, so and there was the talk we did about open and closed intakes a few weeks ago. That bears out in our testing.
Absolutely.
The lack of air filter shrouding bears out in our testing. And this is an intake that has been tested at least on one 850 kit that showed no restrictions whatsoever from anything else on the market. So we're confident that these are the best flowing, most well-engineered intakes on the market. I wish we would have released these 2 years ago. It took us a little longer to get there. We have had our standard intake with our standard tapered tube. That's a very good setup. Those are actually on sale on our website right now. If you're just sticking a stock turbo, especially stage 1, that's a very good setup.
Yeah.
And they're extremely good price right now on our site. But
you don't plan to put your stock in, right?
The stock
if you're
inlet,
stock hardware, stock
right.
turbo inlet,
Yeah.
you're set with that intake.
But even our previous generation intake with a big inlet with a coupler, you'll still pick up those gains.
Yep.
So if you're looking for a good deal on a really nice intake, but the market was very clear they want a full 4-inch intake, and so that's what we moved to. Yeah, look for those to drop this week. We will feature them on next week's.
Yep, we're wrapping up the stage 2 tuning, so that'll be hitting.
Yeah, we'll be releasing our stage 2
pretty soon as well.
Yep,
we've been testing that for a long time now. It's been on lots of track days and countless street miles at this point.
Yep. Someone is asking, what are the common symptoms of a boost leak?
Less boost.
Typically less boost, possibly hissing.
It really depends on the car. Yeah, that's a tough one. On a mass airflowed car, you'll see lots of odd behaviors. You'll get either really rich fueling, because you've got a bunch of metered air that's getting out of the system now.
Definitely a loss of power.
Loss of power. Generally, it'll come with most any car you should get a fault code with it. Pretty easy symptom. But typically, a loss of power, your fuel mixture is going to be off. Your drivability may suffer as the turbo or supercharger is trying to hit a certain amount of pressure and it can't.
You see wastegate duty cycles go to 100%,
yep,
depending on how bad the leak is.
Yep.
So it should be pretty easy to diagnose.
Yeah.
You can also visually inspect any of your connections. Turbo outlet, any of the intercooler piping.
Yeah, it can get a little trickier around things like the bypass valves do fail in some of the 2 liters. You have a boost leak, but it's basically leaking back to the front of the turbo again.
Yep.
So visually, it's hard to see, and if you're not pressure testing the intake correctly, it's hard to catch. So
typically, we have pressure testing setups for every different motor here in our service department that we use. But if you have anything more specific you want to clarify on what you're asking, we'd be happy to chat about that. Brushless MPI kits for MQB is what we want.
Okay.
What do we want?
Brushless
MQB pipes. All right. Yes, we are working on a whole line of. Now, is that including the fuel rail and injectors and everything?
For the MPI kits, yeah. But that's also the in-tank pump upgrade to a brushless setup.
We're working on all the in-tank kits, so those are coming soon. Thoughts on an aftermarket LSD like WaveTrack versus getting a performance pack GTI with electronic LSD? I mean, we had a GTI here for 6 months that had the vectoring diff, and it was nice. It's hard. It's hard. I mean, I can speak with a lot more certainty that something like a wave track is a very good upgrade. It's a true like torque biasing limited slip differential with an additional little twist that allows you to lift a wheel and still deliver full power to the wheel on the ground. They're relatively simple devices, mechanical devices. There's no electronic manipulation of any kind, and they're proven to work. They're proven to work very, very well. The only thing better is a really good clutch diff, which you would see like in a full out race car. That allows more adjustability on acceleration, on decel.
Yeah, you can run different ramps.
You can ramp up and down, and but it's not practical for the street. They need constant rebuilding. They have a lot of NVH.
Yeah, lots of drivability.
They can hitch
interruptions
on the street. So the wave track is the best of all the worlds, where it drives like a factory car, but delivers similar levels of performance to a full diff. The torque vectoring stuff in theory is really good. We haven't really pushed it that hard on the GTI.
I don't have a lot of good data to really give you a solid answer back to back on those. Because very few people are going to swap out a vectoring diff for like a wave track. And
I think if you have the vectoring diff, stick with it. Yeah. If you don't, get a wave track.
Yep.
We now have an older 2015 GTI that doesn't have the diff. It's definitely worse than the torque vectoring diff.
Yes, you'll be peg legging all the way around the track.
It has our stage 1 on, and it's just like wah ba 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 bra ba 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 all the way to through third gear. So, anyways, without knowing more, it's going to be hard to say. But full recommendation for wave track. You're going to want to send your transmission out and have someone.
Yeah, it's going to get installed by someone who's done this before. It's got to get shimmed.
I don't recommend doing it yourself.
Yeah, you've got to shim the.
The cost of install is the big. GTI.
Oh, absolutely.
One has the torque vector. By the torque vector.
Yep.
$2,000.
Yep. The resale on those, you're not usually paying the full premium for the sport pack.
Yeah. 4.0 T mounts, as we discussed last week. We had some concerns in our testing, and so we are addressing those. Unfortunately, that will mean a delay. We are not close to being able to release them, which sucks. But we're not gonna knowingly release a product
if we ever find an issue like that or any issue.
We do, like all companies, at times release products that we believe are 100%, and then we later find, thanks to all of you using them and torturing them in new situations, applications, and environments, that there was a weak point, and so we go back and fix those. But we, to the best of our knowledge, release products that are problem-free, and so that's where we're at with this. I'm sorry for the delay, but take solace in knowing that it's going to be an even better product.
Yep.
That will ensure that you have no issues with it.
It's great when we catch things before they're released, but it's tough because it does push release.
It's painful for us, just like, but that's the right thing to do. At almost $900, why is your MQB 2.0 T downpipe better than others? What is our current price of them? Is it? Yeah. Can you instead of just saying? So currently our 2.0 T downpipe comes with mid pipes for both all-wheel drive and front-wheel drive application. To our knowledge, nobody else does that on the market, and that means you can just order it and it shows up. It does mean that you end up with an extra part. So early next year, we will be introducing 2 separate part numbers, one for front-wheel drive, one for all-wheel drive, and we will be able to reduce the price slightly. I think it'll end up at about $50 less.
Yeah, and keep in mind, it's not just a downpipe. This is also a high-flow performance cat.
Yeah, so it is a high-flow cat, and we use the Euro 3. So it's a high-quality catalytic converter. Just keep in mind, not all catalytic converters are created equal. I'll be honest, I know what these cost. We are not making a ton of money on these. And so I don't know, what else is on the market that's cheaper.
That has proper. I mean, we did full cast transitions from turbo to cat, and then cat to downpipe. So
my only guess is that they're using a much cheaper catalyst matrix
and likely manufacturing method.
Ours is also cast stainless steel, which is not cheap to do. So can you buy cheaper ones? Yes. Is there a reason they're cheaper? Absolutely. It was not our goal to bring the cheapest downpipe on the market to the market. We will be able to reduce the price some in the future due to splitting out both pieces. But at $895, currently you're not going to find a better quality downpipe on the market, even from the big UK company overseas. Theirs isn't going to be any better than this. So yeah, I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's a high quality piece. It also flows pretty much like a test pipe.
Yep.
I ran this product on our S3 for many years, and I always appreciated the fact that I never smelled the exhaust. It didn't smell like an old jalopy. I didn't always have soot all over my bumper, and for a long time it had our R460 turbo kit on that car, and on 100 octane it made lots of power. Yeah, it was a very fun car.
We've never had an issue with those.
I don't believe we've ever had one
Tracker Street and
warranted or returned for warranty. It uses a very high quality OEM grade Euro 3 stainless steel matrix catalytic converter. Mm-hmm. So you're not only will the car perform, it'll also run very clean as well. Again, these are for racing use only. These are not OEM or emissions compliant products. But even in a racing application, rest assured, your car will be running quite clean.
Yeah.
And it would pass Euro 3 standards, which from like 10 or 12 years ago. Yep. So very, very clean running product, very good quality. Again, there's way more expensive ones on the market. We would say that at $895, ours is the best and a great value. All right, so how does a stage 1 tune affect recommended maintenance intervals on a B8.5 S4?
Shouldn't really have much of an effect on those. As long as you're using like good quality oil, that's really the only additional thing I can think about.
Oil change intervals, they're kind of up to each person's discretion.
The driving style, environment. If you're in the desert versus Tahoe at elevation,
there's
it's going to change.
Of dust
it's going to change.
That's really hot.
Yep. Fuel quality, what fuels you're running, all of that can affect maintenance intervals more than just a stage 1 tune.
Yeah, so I don't know. If I was just going to pull something out of my keister, I would say change your oil, 20% sooner, something like that. Just
if you really want,
you're really hammering on it.
Be safe with it. Yeah.
But generally speaking, none of our stage 1 tunes are going to affect the quality. It could accelerate the B8s. Don't have the best high flow cats from the factory.
It's not really a maintenance interval, but it is a consideration.
That could be accelerated
those
slightly.
Kind of kick the bucket earlier than any other application out. He's really a long time.
Just most cars aren't even maintained to factory standards. So if you do that, I think you'll be in good shape.
Yep.
Will you make 3.0 T tunes for the 4MQ7 supercharged V6 like B8 S4?
Probably not. That's not the same ECU and controller. That's a much earlier variant of that. And frankly, I've had one other person ask ever, so it's not exactly a.
If there's a bunch of Q7 people out there who want tuning, please let us know. Our impression is that it's a very small and underutilized market. That there's not a lot of people out there.
Yeah, if it was as easy as just moving our software over to the Q7 ECU, absolutely any day. It's not that easy. It's a whole nother control. It's different flashing, different controller layout, different programming, different calibration.
B9 motor mounts. Yes, we are working on them. We will release them probably by middle of next year. Again, assuming all the testing goes well, but we are working on a full density line B9 motor mount program. So stay tuned for that.
Mm-hmm. Can a longer USB cable be used with your flash tool without issue? That is a very open-ended question. Yes, you can use a longer one as long as it works. Depending on how long you go. I mean, we've already got a 6-foot cable. That's usually the max I recommend. But I mean, if you've got a good quality cable, sure. It gets dicey when you get really long because you usually have to go to an active cable with a little hub built in. I have not had good luck
Like
with
a
those.
booster.
Yeah, basically. So, 6 to 10 feet, I would keep it in that range and not worry about it too much.
What will happen if they use a cable that's too long?
You can have issues with the just the communication to the actual cable itself. Can become a problem. It's impossible to say what issues you're going to have because it can be a power related issue, it can be a communications related issue. It's just something you don't generally want to deal with when you're in the middle of flashing a car.
So try not to.
Yeah.
Just use the cable that we give you. But if there's a reason why you need a longer one, like you're using your friend's laptop in Brooklyn and it's like 6 stories up, their laptop is like bolted to the desk. I don't know what kind of situation and why you can't just move the laptop closer to the car, but feel free to run it by us, tuning at 034motorsport.com.
Yeah, and ours is long enough. I mean, we do, whatever flashing is done here, it's done, the laptop's on a cart next to the vehicle.
Yeah.
So the cable's, sufficient to reach into the vehicle with no issues.
Will you make density line control arms for the B9A4S4? I'm sure we will. We currently have not seen any issues with those, so we haven't prioritized it. Previous generations, the cars early on had kind of Achilles heels type issues with the control arms. So, and these control arm products are very expensive to do. There's many different forged arms, and so we have to develop a lot of new forgings and stuff like that. So if there's something specific that you'd like, or there's a specific reason you're asking, we'd be interested to know. Are you just looking for a performance improvement, or have you had a failure? Is there something going on? Has been an S4. They're clunking.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Good to know.
Good to know. Yeah, we have not.
We like upgrading.
Many of these cars, the other issues, many of these cars are under warranty too. So we don't hear about a lot of this until they start coming off warranty.
I mean, our car hasn't had any issues that we know of. No, it hasn't.
We would definitely know.
We're also on our track.
Yes. We do have the uppers. So if you'd like to address this particular person, can upgrade to our uppers. Then
the full lower kits we have not.
Yeah.
Dove into.
Do you recommend wheel studs or the OEM lug bolts? Either. That's the beauty of our wheels, is they don't require spacers typically. So
we use the same profiles as the OEM stuff, so there's no requirement to change.
I like studs because I can slide the wheel on and off, and I don't have to try to line up the wheel bolts. It's a real pain in the butt. So, with that said, we have a line of wheel studs on our site that we've had for years. We recently have taken the opportunity to upgrade to a new motorsport style with the bullnose nut centering feature. They're beautiful. We just got some production samples, and we're very excited. So we'll be releasing those, and I think that's something the market can really use right now. So, anyways, I think we're running out of time. How much? We got a minute?
No, we're under a minute.
Okay. So, anyways, thanks for joining us. Thanks for all your guys' questions, and we will be back next week, same time, same station. So, cheers.